Hey there, this is Zach from MyCodeTeacher.com. Today I'm going to teach you how to display the current time to the iPhone. We will show the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, and also whether or not it's AM or PM by using the NS Calendar, NS Date, NS Date Components, and NS Calendar Unit classes. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and create a new project, a view-based application. We're going to call this Clock. So the first thing we need to do is we're just going to set up our very simple design here in Interface Builder. So we're going to open up the Resources group and click on Clock View Controller. And we're going to need to add two labels, one to display the time and one to display whether it's AM or PM. So go ahead and drag the label in here. And we're going to need to make this a very, very large label. So we're going to drag this probably to about that tall, that wide. And now we can make this larger by hitting Command Shift and the plus sign. Let's go ahead and click on the label, Command Shift plus. So we'll make it quite large here because we want a very big label. Now in our inspector window here, we're going to want to center the label. So go ahead and click the center label. And additionally, we're going to want to drag in another label which is going to show AM or PM. We'll put that right about there. We'll need to adjust it later when we see where the exact time is going to display. So that's all we're going to need for Interface Builder. The rest is going to be in the code. Let's go ahead and save Interface Builder, Command S, and we will get into the code. So I've just made my window bigger for display purposes. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is close the resource group and go into the classes folder, and we will go to clockviewcontroller.h. We're going to need to declare our properties. We're going to have two IB outlets, and the first IB outlet is going to be called a time label. It's going to be of type UI label, and the second IB outlet is going to be called AM or PM label. That's going to display literally whether or not it's AM or PM. So let's go ahead and declare those. We've got IB outlet, UI label, and this one, like I said, is going to be called time label. Now, our second label, IB outlet, UI label, is going to be called AM or PM, all lowercase, label with a capital L. Now, we're going to need the NS Date class, the NS Date components, the NS Calendar, and the NS Calendar unit classes. These are going to help us pull the time that your iPhone is currently displaying. Let's go ahead and declare these. I will explain each class as we use them in further detail. So we're going to have an NSDate variable, and that's going to be called current time. Now we're going to have NSDate components, and we're going to call that date components. Additionally, we're going to have NS calendar. We're going to call that calendar. And NS calendar unit. We're going to call that unit flags. Now we're going to need one timer, another string for seconds, and then 3 integers. So our timer is basically going to update the time every 1 second. So we'll call this update timer. And we're going to have a string called seconds. I'll explain why we need this further on. We're going to have 3 integers, 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 second. Okay? Now, in addition to all of our properties, we're going to need a function called update time. It doesn't return anything, so it's of type void. So let's go ahead and declare this, promising the compiler that this function is going to exist. So we've got the function called update time, not timer, time. Make sure you get rid of the R. And we are set to now begin our code. But before we forget, let's go ahead and connect our IB outlets. Let's go ahead and go back to the resources, click on Clock View Controller, go to Window, Document, Files Owner, Tools, Inspector, and we should see the labels show up right here. We've got AM or PM label, so let's go ahead and connect that and our time label right here. Okay, go ahead and save, and we'll get straight into the code. Let's go to clockviewcontroller.m. Now the first method we're going to need to write here is a pre-built-in method called viewDidAppear, and this method will be called when the view, ClockViewController, the view for ClockViewController appears in the window. So this is called void viewDidAppear, passes in a boolean animated according to the documentation. So the first thing we need to do is we need to allocate an instance of our calendar property that we declared in the header. So we're going to set calendar equal to NSCalendar. We're going to go ahead and allocate calendar class, and we're going to initialize it with a specific type of calendar. Now there's already constants for these, and we're going to call init with calendar identifier, and there's a nice little constant here called NS Gregorian calendar already predefined for us. So we've now allocated an instance of NS calendar. Now we need to set our unit flags property, and what that's going to do is it's going to take, again, predefined settings on the type of unit we're going to want to extract from the NS calendar data. So we're going to want hours, minutes, and seconds, so we need to set our flags to be able to allow that, and we'll later use these flags to retrieve this data. So we're going to set unit flags equals NS hour calendar unit. We're going to use a bar to separate. Now we're going to need NS minute calendar unit because we want the minutes, and we're also going to need NS second calendar unit. Again, these are all predefined. So we've declared our calendar, that it's a Gregorian calendar, and we've declared the units that we're going to want to retrieve from this calendar. Now we need to set up an NS timer, which we've already declared in our header file, called update timer, and we're going to want to call this function called update time, which we also promised was going to exist in the header, and that is what's going to update our clock on the screen. So we're going to go ahead and call update timer. If you're not sure how an NS timer works, I would recommend viewing the timer tutorial that we have in the iPhone section. But essentially, we declare an instance of NS timer here. We want it to be a scheduled timer with an interval, our interval being 1 second. The target is going to be self, because our target, our method that we're going to go to every 1 second is going to be in this class. Our selector is the method that we're going to go to, so we're going to say @selector update time. User info, we don't have any. And is it going to repeat? It definitely is going to repeat, so we're going to say yes. Okay, so go ahead and save, and we're going to go ahead and start our update time method. Again, it's of type void. It's called update time. And the first thing that we need to do here is we want to pull the current time from the calendar. Now we've already set up a property for this, and we called it current time, and that's going to be of type NSDate. So we need to call NSDate, and this is a class method, so NSDate date, and that's literally going to return the current date to the variable current time. Now the next thing we need to declare is something called date components. This is going to call our calendar object, and it's going to call the components method in the calendar object. It's going to send in the unit flags, which is basically calling for everything that we want to retrieve from that calendar object. So we're sending in basically that we wanted to retrieve the hour, the minute, and the seconds. And from date, is basically the time that you want to retrieve that information from, which we've just declared above to be current time. So, I'll show you what I mean here. Date components equals our calendar object, calendar, components, which is the method in the calendar object that we're calling. Components are unit flags, which we've declared when the view appears, and from date is literally the date that we're calling for these flags to be returned to date components, which is current time. Now, we've set our date components, so how we retrieve each specific piece of information from the date components is actually really simple. For example, let's retrieve the hour. We've declared an integer in the header called hour. So hour equals date components. We call the date components object, and we call the hour method. And that will literally return an integer to hour on the number of the hour it is. If it's 12, 24, whatever. Know that the hour is in military time, so know that it could be up to 24. Now we're going to go ahead and set our minute. Same way, date components, minute. And we will also do second equals date components and second. So now, when this update time function is called, it takes the current time and sets the hour to hour, the minute to minute, and the second to second. Okay? So that's actually really simple. We've now retrieved the exact time from our calendar. Now what we need to do is we need to account for a few situations. For example, when to know whether to set it to AM or PM. And we could do that by calling if hour is greater than or equal to 12. Remember, it's military time, so if it's 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever, we know that it's going to be PM because it's not the morning. So if hour is greater than or equal to 12, we're going to go ahead and set our AM or PM label, calling AM or PM label set text, and we're going to say PM. Now, otherwise, we're going to set the text to AM because it's obviously not PM. Now, this is a little bit tricky. Let's say it's 15. The hour is 15. Well, that's basically 3 p.m. How can we set the hour to actually show 3 p.m. instead of 15? Well, just a little bit of basic math here. I'll show you for example. We'll say if hour is greater than or equal to 12, we know that it's a PM hour. So we're going to say hour equals 12 minus 24 minus the current hour. So for example, this would work this way. If it were, remember, if the hour was 15, that would really be 3 p.m. So we've got 12 minus 24 minus the hour, which is 15. So that's basically 12 minus 9. 24 minus 15 is 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. So our hour would show the appropriate time. Now there's one more exception. If the hour shows to be 0, then we just want to go ahead and set the hour equal to 12. Basically means midnight. We are actually almost done here. What we want to do now is when it shows the seconds, it doesn't put a leading 0 in front of the number of seconds that it currently is in the current minute. So we want to go ahead and put that 0 so it doesn't look odd. We want it to have the leading 0. So what we're going to do is if the second is less than 10, then we're going to go ahead and set seconds, which is our string that we declared here in the header. Remember, seconds is an NS string. It's not an integer. So we're going to set seconds equal to an NS string, but with a format. So string with format. And we're going to call the @ sign to show that it's a string. And we're going to put the 0 in front. %i means in this place there's going to be an integer existing. We end the string, and now we need to tell this format what that integer is going to be. So we put a comma, and we'll put second because that's what the second is going to be for the integer. So go ahead and end that. Okay, so that's going to put on the leading 0. Now, otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and set seconds equal to, again, an NS string with a format. This time without a leading 0, so just %I, because the digit is going to be 2 digits, so we don't need the leading 0. So put the comma and put second there. Okay, now we need to do a similar thing with the minutes, so because we want leading zeros for the minutes as well. So if minute is less than 10, then we're going to go ahead and set the time label dot-text equals NS string with format, and we're going to need an integer for the hour, a colon to separate, another integer, a 0, and then another integer. This is going to put the padding on the integer, another colon so we can display the seconds, %@ sign. Now this is not an integer. Remember, our seconds variable here is an NS string, not an integer, so we need to display an NS string by calling %@. So now, in the same order that we declared them, we need to show what's going to take the place of our variables in the string format. So we're going to call hour and minute and seconds, right bracket and a colon. Otherwise, if it's greater than 10 or greater, then we need to set the time label.text. Let's go ahead and save ourselves some work. We'll just copy this and paste and take out the leading 0, and that will display it. So now I'm going to go ahead and save. Now we're almost done. Go ahead and build, and we'll show that the time works. There's going to be one little glitch which I'm going to show you how to fix. Okay, so we start up the program here, and did you see it took about a split second or so to actually show the time? It's 12:15 a.m. where I'm at. Okay, so you can see it's pretty consistent with my computer. Now, it took a split second to load up because our first function isn't being called. And we got a simple warning here that's really easy to fix. I'll show you in a second. Actually, we've got a simple warning here. Let's go ahead and fix that right off the bat. We accidentally declared the unit flags property as a pointer when it actually does not need to be a pointer. So go ahead and fix that, and we'll rebuild just to show that that's fixed. Okay, so when the function gets called, view did appear, it calls the update timer, which in 1 second it's going to call update time. So for that 1 second, we're looking at the default label which we have, which is kind of ugly. So all we have to do is below these 3 declarations here, we just need to call update time. Now it's important not to call this before our calendar and unit flags is set, because otherwise they haven't been initialized yet. So let's go ahead and call self update time, and you'll notice when we build and go that it shows up right away. So 12:18, 49 seconds shows that it's in the morning, and there you have it. It's actually really simple. Now you can of course customize the AM label and whatever how you want to do it. Now some people want to put digits on their clock. For example, I've worked on a project where you'll actually have to customize each individual digit by an image. For example, like this. So what you want to do to get this same effect is name your images, you know, 1.png, 2.png, 3.png, and just call these images according to their corresponding time. So it's actually really simple and a really fun project to work on. I definitely recommend it. Everyone needs to know how to work with a calendar at some point in time or another. that is going to conclude my tutorial for tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Zach from MyCodeTeacher.com. I'll see you next time.